Hello and welcome to part two on the series on adaptive overstrain, adaptive exhaustion, and I suppose the heading would be metabolic adaptability. In the last video, I went through many of the different ways that we can lose our metabolic adaptability, the ways that especially your most adaptive hormones like adrenaline, cortisol, insulin, and many of the neurotransmitters that keep us going gradually drift out of balance and then go through this fairly predictable curve of arousing to whatever it is the adaptive needs are, and then gradually getting to the place where you can't really maintain those adaptive capacities or needs, and then they're still there, but your experience of your health, of yourself, of most of your days is going down slowly from where you started to below where you started, and then often significantly worse. And then what happens for a lot of people is we go through about 15 years of kind of the ups and downs of cyclic burnout and doing all the different things that we do to try and recover our health. So the theme of today's conversation is how to restore your metabolic adaptability. And in a way, the only way we can really have that conversation is to make sure we're all kind of in agreement on the things that can go wrong or have gone wrong. So if I was to be blunt, and I don't know, I often ask people permission before I'm blunt, so please allow me to be blunt. Modern life with respect to our schedules, our diets, our kind of aloneness, our constant expectation of moving everything and everyone forward, almost all of the time, has profoundly dysregulated the metabolism of what we might want to start calling, or this is what I'm going to start calling, our hunter, gatherer, and carrier, as in carrying things, ancestors. So when we think of cortisol, insulin, neurotransmitters, and things like that, they're obviously going to be measurably out of balance. As well as that, though, we're also all living in an environment where we quite often have too many calories, but not enough nutrients. Or for some, we might have not enough calories and also not enough nutrients. So for the body to repair itself, to manage called the building blocks of life, we really need those building blocks. And a lot of us have kind of habituated ourselves to eating for calories or limiting calories, but our focus hasn't really been on rebuilding our nutrient density and our body's, what you might think of as nutrient essence, or the kind of Qing or essence of Chinese medicine in that way. Now, it's interesting to consider that if I think any of us was, sitting around a table and having a, good conversation about what we all think is the most likely thing to get people to be more healthy, it's fairly obvious, besides eating food, that we need a certain amount of exercise. I think everyone's heard of the 10,000 steps a day. There's the minimum, and this is fairly accurate, absolute minimum of about 30 to 40 minutes of fairly consistent activity, 3 times a week, just for your metabolism to get the signaling it needs as a post-hunter gathering carrying human. That we're still alive, that we're still participating, that we're still being effective in the sense of what adapting has always been like. So when we think of, we should all get enough exercise, it's again that 3 times a week. That's just like stopping something from sliding down a hill in the direction you don't want to go. So if 3 times a week is just enough to keep you from sliding backwards, it's going to take 4 or 5 different kinds of activity with respect to the carrying part of our ancestry to actually move ahead, or to have an impact, you could say, on the fat loss aspect of our metabolism. Now, a few other things that, depending on who you talk to, or how you feel life is meant to go, or what you believe about what science has recently had to say, there is such profound evidence that we need a certain amount of sunlight every day. If it's 20 minutes a day, or maybe an hour a day, whatever it might be, given that most of our evolutionary history was living outside or sheltering when we had to, but otherwise living outside, We've evolved almost always being around daylight during daytime and during a lot of silence and not a lot of artificial light at nighttime. And I know this is obvious to say, but when we're wanting to restore our deeper adaptive capacity, and we're missing those fundamental needs of actual daylight consistently, if not daily, and actual silence and darkness for, the seasonal period of time that we're actually in, we're, you could say, kind of moving against evolution and moving against what's the best for us a little bit. And all of those things tend to add up. If I was to offer some very simple hacks or ideas, which I've kind of alluded to, ancestral eating means you're eating basically nutrient-dense seasonal foods. I wrote a book called Returning to Your Ancestral Diet. You can still get it, although only in the book form. There's ancestral movement videos and courses coming online every day now. So there's something about how we're, as modern leading edge 2026 humans, how we're all coming to recognize that, what we really needed, or what we really need to restore our well-being on many levels is to go back that way. Now, this doesn't mean we all want to go back and live in a village and dress up funny and bang rocks together to, make tools and stuff, as fun as that turns out to be. The thing I'm alluding to is just to ask us all, how can we replace in a meaningful way what we've lost? So the diet, it's not too hard. There's a list of things to shop for, and there's ways to cook that don't destroy your food. It's not hard to find a place to buy healthy food. And it's not too complicated to cook it in a way that doesn't injure or destroy your food. When it comes to movement, we have so many hours a week of whatever makes you feel the most adaptive and the most connected and the most capable with respect to what you're doing with your life. Another aspect of this whole ancestral theme is what would it be like within a community if you were migratory, hunting, gathering, carrying humans? Or what would it be like if you were living in a small homesteading community or village where collaboration, cooperation, and sharing the responsibility of protecting ourselves from other people who might want what we have, which has been a part of human history since, humans. And that's also a profound need to be around people that are your people, that are available to you when you need a hand up, and you're available to them when they need a hand up in whatever way that might look. Something that goes a little deeper than that is we can all, I think, imagine, or maybe we've seen movies, or maybe we've participated in some of these things ourselves, but when we think of ritual and ceremony and rites of passage and things that we all share that hold the us of the us together, and allows each of us to be met as our whole person as we go through our, childhood to adolescence to adulthood to mentoring other people to becoming an elder. And throughout all of those transitions, those aren't solo things that just happen within our own life. It's not like at 17 years old, you get a special message in the back of your brain that now within your community, you're understood to be capable of young adult responsibilities. So that's a thing that many people miss today, is having a sense that they belong, that the place they are in their lives exists within their own experience, but also exists in meaning with how other people meet you and hold you and rely on you and even support you. So we have some ancestral eating and moving and co-regulating and connecting and perhaps even engaging in or experimenting or exploring what ceremony and ritual and rites of passage might look like. And there's another aspect if you're in, say, a migratory tribe or you're, all living in the same village, that has to do with the sacred communion that you have with the world that isn't the human world. And I'm just going to ask you to imagine something perhaps a bit playful and maybe a bit silly. So nowadays we have all these reality TV shows where people get together, often in fairly manufactured and interesting environments where inevitably certain kinds of conflict, and if it's hookup culture, or if it's survive as a group, or if it's win at some game, or whatever it is. Most of our relational reality TV offers us a sense that staying around people really means be tricky, be manipulative, find a small clique, manipulate your way through whatever larger social obligations you have, get your selfish needs met however way that they may go, and the consequences are actually the entertainment. So wouldn't that be fun? I don't think that tribe would get anywhere or last very long. I don't think that village would be very full of at least healthy, adaptive, and connected human beings. So as I get close to closing up this fairly common sense conversation about regaining our adaptive capacity, notice how caveman, pardon the pun, simple the solutions are for most of us if we're willing to go back in some ways. And again, that doesn't mean living in a hut in the middle of nowhere, although that might be nice. It's more about reminding ourselves, I'm a part of a living ecosystem. I am a living ecosystem. These things are meant to match up in some ways. And perhaps instead of looking for the new lab test, the new adaptogen, the new miracle cure, the new way you can mediate your mitochondrial system's bad moods or something, with whatever modern or new age or newly invented tool, or medicine or something. I'm also encouraging us all to just remember, yep, gotta come back to some connection with seasons, light, dark, busy, quiet. All of our ancestors went on a massive camping trip and hiking trip with a backpack and maybe a pole with who knows what hanging off of it almost every day of their lives. And although, badly reported anthropology suggests that humans only lived to, say, 35, that's based on what's called life expectancy. And when 10 children die before the age of 18 out of every 12 children that are born, your statistic for life expectancy goes from what humans are normally going to live to down to something abysmal like your mid-30s. And the reason why I want to play with that is that lifespan, the human lifespan, has always been, 100 years, give or take. And when you look at old cultures, they have reverence for the people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and maybe 80s. So clearly this idea that we all only lived in the, the clearly more challenging past that humans have had, we probably also had people who lived a really long time too. So the next thing I'll be sending out for my Substack subscribers, and thanks for hanging out, is going to be a conversation or a kind of a list of the adaptogens and what they're the most beneficial for and more or less how to apply them. Although I would always recommend working with a clinician on deciding which ones are the best for you. But I also find myself at a bit of an impasse. And the impasse is about creativity and intention and, I guess, feedback and things. Initially, I had this idea to go through 9 different terrains. Each terrain I would have a kind of what goes wrong and how to adapt to that challenge, and then an article about sort of the more technical insights that might help us make good decisions. And I find myself recently so drawn and so inspired and so curious and so passionate about sharing some things that I'm learning that I've been learning about and learning from for about the last 40 years or so in my own life. So what I've decided to do is to take a little break from my 9 terrains thing. It wasn't generating a lot of interaction or a lot of questions in the way I was hoping, so I might come back to that. But the thing I'm going to be sharing for the next few weeks or a couple of months is probably the most profound remembering or revelation, depending on how you look at it, for our understanding of how we can generate and restore and maintain and improve our actual felt sense of aliveness, of quality of movement, of feeling very anchored and connected with our instinctual self, our kind of animal self, our more ancestral self, if you will. And in moving in that direction, one of the aspects of the conversation will necessarily be about approaching movement and exercise, not specifically maybe what you're doing right now, but to include, even for a few minutes a day, some other ways of moving, stretching, toning, activating, releasing the way we actually inhabit all of our connective tissues. And I'm really hoping you'll go on that journey with me. I'm hoping it'll be more interactive. And for me personally, after practicing these things for decades and decades, and loving every minute of it, the new research that's come out that helps everyone understand what exactly is going on within these kinds of movement and physical and somatic interactions. Now that science has caught up and expanded on and almost exploded into a realm of evidence and a realm of historical practice that shows very clearly that, for fun things to say out loud, with proper balance within our lives, we actually have a fluid and gel battery, if you will, or capacitor, or something that can store a certain kind of electrical potential and a certain aspect of our energy, maybe not the energy to run around in circles, but the energy that maintains the ability to run around in circles in a different way. So I'll be writing some articles specifically to help us understand what's going on, and maybe some new terminology and some new awareness and appreciation for what's happening throughout every part of your body all of the time. And then I'll be sharing some more practical movement opportunities. I won't make them too long, but just for everyone to be able to feel directly what happens when your body gets to regulate itself and restore certain capacities that helped us for most of our hunting, gathering, and carrying history as human beings. And the first thing I'll be doing in that regard, after I share an article with you, is I'll be dancing like kelp in an ocean, and helping each of us who wants to explore a specific aspect of our body's interconnectedness, how to use that strange metaphor or image of kelp in the ocean, depending on the currents, to actually open a whole bunch of stagnation of that fluid that makes that battery, that makes so much of our body work even better. So again, thanks for listening to my hopefully short chat on inspiring us all to recognize that improving our adaptability is either going to be chemical choices or health food choices or herbal choices and things like that, which are always going to be helpful. But that most of our actual adaptive capacity will return when we decide that and commit to and maintain enough ancestral movement, however you approach that, enough ancestral eating, however you approach that, enough connection within the seasons and daylight and actual nighttime, actual not busy staring at things and doing things and bright lights everywhere, when it's dark out, at least sometimes, and then we'll see. So I wish you well, happy spring, and I'll see you in the I'll share with you an article soon on an entirely different perspective on what people call chi stagnation. So, thank you, and I'll have fun dancing like kelp for you soon.